Please welcome the President and CEO of Wyndham, Geoff Ballotti.
Thank you. Great to be here.
When I was actually speaking before, I was talking about connectivity, I was talking about airlift, I was talking about how to get from point A to point B. You've been coming down to Sahik for a long time.
10 years. We met 10 years ago.
We did. Right here in Buenos Aires.
Right here.
How did you get here? Physically this time.
It was a scramble. How many people had difficulty getting here to Buenos Aires for this conference?
Yeah, I think you're the only one.
No, there's a few. It was really challenging. Where's Arturo? Arturo is not attending the session. I was talking to him last night about attendance, and Arturo was telling us about how challenged, and he said it earlier, how challenged this conference is this year for attendance. To Peter's question, my flight out of Miami was canceled. We were able to get the last seat on United Airlines out of Houston. I was told this morning, to Peter's point on connectivity, that my flight back tomorrow night, and Peter said this, it's all about, after a disaster, getting the airplanes in position. Miami International, I think everybody realized, opened yesterday for business, but they do not have their planes in position. And my flight, I was told just an hour ago, Miami back to Boston, where I was hoping to fly, has been canceled. And the earliest they could get me out is Monday, getting me back on Tuesday.
So you're so upset about being stuck in Buenos Aires, are you?
No place I would rather be stuck than right here, because I really do believe that the moment is now for Buenos Aires and for Argentina. We were talking, Peter and I, at the break with Alejo from Alejo Rodriguez. Did he come to this show? Mr. Rodriguez is not here, but Invest USA was telling us that their new tagline is Invest BA. The moment is now, and we love this. We love this market. We love this country. We made a very big investment in Argentina. We have some of our executives from Fen Hotels last year, and we are now headquartering our operations for all of Latin America here in Buenos Aires. It's a very important market for us. It is.
How many hotels are we talking about?
We're talking about, on the acquisition of Fen Hotels, 24 hotels, 17 of them in Argentina, but also in Uruguay and Paraguay, in Caracas, in, Bolivia, all across Latin America. But that's in addition to the hundreds of other hotels. We will move our Latin American headquarters to Argentina. We have just, with Patricio Fuchs, just taken up beautiful new office space in WeWorks. Has anybody seen the new WeWorks tower here in Buenos Aires? Beautiful, beautiful new space. And it is there that we will run our Latin American headquarters. In fact, we had very big news, and Peter, you got to meet him at breakfast this morning. Today we were announcing that a 25-year veteran of this industry, who has worked at Hyatt, who has worked at IHG, who has worked at Accor, who has worked with Wyndham for 15 years, and he better be here in this room. Is Alejandro Morena here? He's fired. He's not here? Boy, there he is. Oh, no, now you're here. Thank you, Arturo, for coming. But we announced that Alejandro Morena, he's already meeting developers outside, is our new president of our region, and will be leading it from our new offices in WeWorks. But this is a really important country. This is a really important time for companies like ours to be investing in this market. And it's a market that, as we saw from Smith Travel, from Patricia, is the market that's growing the fastest this year, thank goodness. From a RevPAR standpoint, I think we need to take our numbers up for the finance folks from Wyndham in the room. We need revised budgets for next year based on those Smith Travel data. points that we just saw, but it's a market poised for considerable growth.
Well, part of development obviously is anticipation of the market. So the question becomes, why did you pick Argentina now?
This government that we've been talking about all morning has got it all going right. There's been so much anticipation of President Macri's policies, and they're beginning to come to fruition, as we heard from each and every speaker. What this government is doing in terms of laying the foundation for success and growth is incredible. He is an amazing leader. He has done things that have been long anticipated, and it is a market from an investment standpoint that our company believes in and will continue to invest in. And I think you have, Peter, did you know we have a very, we know that he's an Emmy Award-winning journalist, but one of my favorite shows to watch. How many folks in the room have watched The Royal Tour? The Royal Tour is one of the most watched travel shows in the United States. Peter Greenberg interviews the president or ex-president of a country to present that country in a way that brings it to life unlike any other travel show, I think, on the planet. And I think you have one coming up with President Macri. Is that
we're working on that with President Macri. We just finished one in Kagame, with President Kagame in Rwanda. We've done one with Netanyahu in Israel, with the King of Jordan. It's where they head
Peter tells me never to bring a PowerPoint. That's death. You said that to me walking in, but I brought a PowerPoint that you haven't seen. So right here, this is what we're talking about. Right in front of you, Peter. This was you. This was you. The first story.
Was Calderón in Mexico. That's Correa in Ecuador.
And you were on the Amazon River there, I believe, in front of our hotel, the Wyndham Guayaquil, floating down the river. Could you tell us a little bit about that story?
Well, what we do with these presidents and kings and prime ministers is we go to them and they give me about 6 days of their schedule unencumbered, which is unprecedented. And then for the next 6 days, they're my tour guide to the country for a 1-hour special that's broadcast globally. And we've always wanted to do Argentina, by the way. This is the first time we've met with an administration that gets the idea and really understands the power of travel and tourism. And I'm speaking to the converted here in this room when I tell you about the GDP numbers of travel and tourism. And they have no right of editorial review. They have no right of editorial control. The first time they see it is when it goes on the air. So it's real. It's two guys on a road trip, and whatever happens, happens. And I mean, Correa threw me in the river with piranha. They were the nice piranha. But those are some of the stories that we do.
And then we have another slide coming up. That's one of my favorite.
That's Calderón in Mexico, yes.
Mexico, which is an incredibly important travel market. Any Mexicans in the room? Quite a few. Tell us about this episode. I enjoyed that a lot.
Well, what we do on these shows is we do not go to the traditional tourist destinations. We will go to some of them. But we want to go to some that are important to the president and that are accessible. I talked about accessibility before. That's what we're talking about here. For those folks from Mexico, you'll know about the Los Golondrinas, the cave of the swallows. He and I rappelled 1,700 feet into a bottomless sinkhole with 200,000 birds. Anybody can do it if you're crazy, and we actually did it. Again, everything that we do on these shows is not about affordability, but accessibility. So everything that you see me do with these heads of state, anybody who wants to go to that country can do. And the hotels and the tourist organizations and the country's tourism ministries then get involved after the fact.
And speaking of heads of state, one of the most important reactions we had investing here in Argentina was the day of the announcement, that when it was announced that we were making the significant investment that we made here in Argentina with Fen Hotels and its two great brands, Dazzler and Esplendor. We received a call on arrival from President Macri, who actually took the time to call and ask to speak with us about, to him, the importance of that event. This week, we gathered 178 owners from around Latin America, from all of the countries here in the Faena Conference Center, leading up to SAHIC, because SAHIC really is such an important show for us. And President Macri had told us next time we come back, he wanted to meet with us. And unfortunately, and many of you have probably felt this trying to get around the city. It took me an extra hour to get back to my hotel the other night because President Macri was meeting with who? The Prime Minister of Israel. Could we show that next slide? We have one last slide of Peter. Look at this picture. Peter had no idea I was bringing these.
I didn't. I really didn't.
He had no idea. And this just shows you, for those of you, you could watch the show online, and I encourage all of you to do it, and it really talks to Peter's message to us all about what we need to do to promote travel. This is a great vehicle to get us thinking in the United States. But tell us a little bit about the Prime Minister in this episode.
Well, he'd never done this, and I asked him if he'd do it. And it's the closing actually the closing shot in the show. He and I are literally floating in the Dead Sea, reading the newspaper, and which you can do if you shower off immediately thereafter. What these shows do, and what you all need to do with all of your properties, whether they're in South America or anywhere else, is to humanize them, to make them emotional assets. And what these shows do, just in the terms of the things that we do and the way that we do them, humanizes the country and humanizes the leader. His own people had never seen him ride a bike. His own people had never seen him on a jet ski.
Tell us about the opening.
Okay, I will tell you about the opening.
Spectacular opening scenes.
And we're thinking about how we're going to do it in Argentina as well.
With President Macri.
Every opening is a surprise. You have no idea what you're about to see or who you're about to see. So in this particular show, we had to position him at 3 o'clock in the morning in a location, and then we had to climb. And the show actually opens up with a small camera on the skid of a helicopter 3 feet above the desert floor. And it's traveling at about 90 miles an hour as the sun is about to rise around 5 in the morning. Then it crosses a body of water, the Dead Sea, goes back across the desert, and then starts climbing up. And as it gets to the top, as the sun is rising, the only person standing there on the top of Masada is him.
Wow.
Which, as you can imagine, drove his security detail completely batty. But we were able to do that because, and by the way, anybody can do that.
Yep.
You just won't have your own security detail.
Anyway, it's one of the most stunning episodes. It's called The Royal Tour. Peter had no idea I was bringing these slides, but I'm sure you have some questions. Maybe you could open it up for questions.
Well, I have a few more questions before we get to that, and that is this. You talk about the great cooperation you've got from the government here in Argentina. That has not always been the case, not just here, but in other countries.
Absolutely.
Other countries may present you with an idea of certain guarantees or incentives or follow-through or facilitation of regulations. If you take a look at the entire continent, where do you think the governments are helping, and where do you think there's more work to be done?
Mexico is a very important economy and a very important market for us. We have been in it for a long, long time. Wyndham Worldwide has been in this market forever. I think the government in Mexico is doing a fantastic job, and they are helping. I also think, to your question on what we need to do, it's incumbent upon all of us from an advocacy standpoint to work with those governments. In Mexico, we have a massive operation, not only with hotels, but with vacation resorts and timeshare resorts. RCI has been a leader in timeshare exchange there for years. Working with the government from an advocacy standpoint, and you've said it, Peter, is incumbent upon all of us. Our RCI group is always looking for ways to promote Mexico, not only in Mexico, but through all of our vehicles in the United States to consumers, to call centers, to social media channels. And we're always working. Our funnest, latest social media campaign is with one of the Mexican universities, where the children with the best social media campaign, these millennials are actually, Generation Z, are actually invited to come to the United States to present. Brazil, to importance of market, and it's been said time and time again today, is beginning to get it. It is beginning to work with certainly our players and industry players. I mentioned yesterday we had 178 of our owners and developers over at the Faena Center for our regional conference, 2 large Brazilian developers, both talking, Erica Drummond from Vert Hotels talking about airlift and about the importance of airlift and the importance of governments helping along that way. 4 or 5 new carriers, including JetBlue, coming into the Brazilian market. And the importance of not only, and you said it earlier today, the destination, but the hubs within that country, the intercompany travel. And we're seeing that in Mexico. We're seeing now, to your point, nonstop flights from Guadalajara. One of our Mexican developers was saying yesterday, scheduled flights to Cancun. And that just didn't exist a few years ago. So I think the government involvement is critical, and our involvement with the government is equally important.
Let me go back to another model. In fact, I go back to 1989, talking about Cuba, when the Soviet Union basically dissolved, and Cuba lost all of their financial and oil supports. Castro at the time did something amazing because he understood he had a tourism economy.
Right.
And what he did was he legalized the US dollar. He offered a 25-year tax moratorium for foreign companies to come in there. Obviously not the US companies, we still had an embargo, but for everybody else, a 25-year tax moratorium, and the ability to take your profits out in hard currency. That was the Cuban model that went for 25 years, right? Are you seeing any countries in South America doing anything close to that?
Great question. I'm not sure to that degree. We've seen it.
But it would get your attention.
It absolutely would.
I mean, I would think that there will come a time, even when Venezuela will have to make that kind of decision, to be able to attract all the people who essentially have fled that market.
Venezuela is a great example, and we had several Venezuelan developers with us, and it's tough.
It is tough.
Yeah.
I really do believe they will come back because they have a great product if they could actually just get their economic situation together, not to mention political.
Oh, tremendous country, tremendous touristic value.
In your dealing with the governments, is there a question that they ask you that you're always anticipating that is a really stupid question that indicates to you that they really don't get it? Or is there a question that when they ask it indicates to you they really do get it?
President Macri is a great example of, I think, a president, a government, an administration that gets it. In my first phone call with him after our acquisition of FEN, his question was simply, Geoff, what more can we do? What more could my ministries do? And his ministries were absolutely, positively tremendous in terms of support as we were getting comfortable with an investment of that nature. That, to your point, indicates this is a government that really gets it.
Last question from me. It's the elephant in the room about the shared economy and companies like Airbnb. Because you're not, as a matter of your approach to the business, you're not high-end luxury. You are in the 2-3 star range, right?
We are the world's largest economy and mid-scale provider. We operate more hotels than any other hotel company in the world. We've grown through acquisition. We're going to continue to grow. We're going to be our own publicly traded company come April and looking to grow, and we want to continue to grow in that economy and mid-scale space. The growth of the middle class and the potential of the growth of the middle class in this part of the world is tremendous. I look at the opportunity here as we looked. Bob Lowen, our Chief Operating Officer, is here with me today. As he looked 5 years ago in China, when we were 250 hotels, we're 1,400 hotels in China today. And those are appealing to the economy and the mid-scale travelers. That same opportunity exists across Argentina, across Brazil, across Peru, across Colombia, across where we don't have 50 or 60 hotels, where we have dozens of hotels today. And when I looked, the one thing that hit me about Patricia's stats on Smith Travel this morning was that we're not seeing, as a company, RevPARs fall. We're actually seeing across Latin America RevPARs rise this year. Our RevPARs are up year to date. They're not down the 3.4% that she showed. And I think it's because, Peter, and this, what I love, Arturo, about this conference is the amount of data it gives our team. I want to go back and look, and I don't know if Smith Travel has done this, but look at what RevPARs have done in where that growth is coming in the middle class. Because I think in the middle class and the economy segments of this industry, you're seeing demand growth. And it is a really exciting time for us to be in that part of the
But is that
space.
irrespective of the Airbnb impact?
I avoided, once again, your Airbnb question.
I know, I'm not going to let you off the hook.
Airbnb is not having a factor at all for us in this part of the world. Where you're seeing it having an impact is in some of the metropolitan areas in major cities. It is a much different product. It is affecting hotels more in the upscale and upper upscale and luxury space where cities used to see compression and are not feeling that compression because of what the industry is railing against, operators who are taking entire condominium blocks and converting them to illegal hotels. And that's what we, from an industry standpoint in the United States, are battling. But in this part of the world, we're not seeing an impact from Airbnb whatsoever.
So when I see, this is my final question, when I see one of your competitors, Marriott, of course, opening one new hotel every 14 hours, that's the statistic I'm seeing, which is staggering, right? Do you see that kind of growth about to happen in South America?
Absolutely. We're opening 2 hotels every day, including Saturdays and Sundays. We've been doing.
Well, let's do the math. Wait. We've
been doing that. We've been doing that consistently for several years.
So wait, 2 hotels every day is 1 hotel every 12 hours.
There you go.
I can do the math. Okay.
You can do the math. Okay. And a big part of our growth, our hotel portfolio in this part of the world has doubled over the last 3 years. We see no reason that it won't continue to double again over the next 3 years, and we'll continue to look for growth organically with our brands. We have 20 brands across the economy to the upscale segment, but we're really focused on this mid-scale economy traveler, trying to reinvent that economy experience and bring a great value through great brands and great design to the branded market that I think consumers are an experience that consumers are.
So what you're saying, if you're building those hotels and the airlift is there, they will come.
Airlift is critical, absolutely critical.
Ladies and gentlemen, Geoff Ballotti from Wyndham.